Hello and welcome back to Heart of the Holt. Today we're at the glorious Villa Park with Brian Little. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm good, thanks. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So to start off, let's talk about your playing career. So we'll take you to 1975 now, which was a great year for the club. We beat Norwich in the League Cup final and also got promoted back to the First Division. As a player, which was a better feeling?
Well, that season again, there's so many feelings because you straight away hit and it opens one of them little pockets in my brain now. You know, you've like King 1975, League Cup final. I think the biggest memory from that particular period would be Christmas till the end of the season. I think we only lost one game, and we lost at Leyton Orient, who battered us. I mean, they kicked lumps out of us, in fairness. So that run of games from Christmas time to the end of the season, where we lost one game of football in 25, something like that, was a great run. And I played with a lad called Keith Leonard, who a lot of people probably don't know too much about today. But Keith was a young centre forward who was 6'3", who was a big lad, who was a rough lad. He was tough. He was a hard lad. And he would win all sorts of little flick-ons. For me to play alongside someone like him was great, because he used to get stuck in. He battered a few, got battered a bit himself sometimes, and people like me used to just flit around picking the pieces up and look like a good player because he sort of sorted a few out for me. So that the 75, that the league run was incredible, but to play at Wembley at the end of a season in a League Cup final against another second division team at the time, I know that game opened the door to my international break, because at that game Revie was there. I played really well in the final, and I, on the back of that I got an opportunity to go with the England national team, which again at 21 was young. It was, again, going back to that period, not many players at that age became international footballers, and my main rivals then would have been Trevor Francis, Tony Woodcock, who played at Notts Forest, who was a good player, and they were the similar sort of around my age, and I got in the England team before them, so that was a massive step for me as well. I think it's hard. It floods memories. It floods memories of being in a good team. But Wembley was brilliant. It was a great occasion, and I still think I had the biggest and the longest shorts ever of anybody, because that was my style that day. I remember thinking, I'm going to have bigger shorts. My shorts are going to go down below my knees. And I remember Ron Saunders looking at me going, "Oh, what's he doing today?" But everybody has that. And if you see pictures, my shorts are massive, and I'm dead proud of myself because I'm looking different. That was typical. I remember that again, silly little things like me being me and getting shouted at. "What are you wearing today?" And I'm saying to the kitman, "Who's got the biggest shorts? I want them. I want them big baggy shorts." Silly things that I used to do just to try and look different, because I just wanted to be different to other people. It was great. Love that one.
So, as you say, 1975 was when you were first capped for England, a great year for yourself personally. As a professional footballer, what is it like to represent your country? Not many people get to do that. No,
it was great, and the sort of real gutting thing for me would be, played really well, come on against Wales, helped create the goal. And then the next game was Scotland, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you'll be perfect for a game like that." But Don Revie left me out because he thought it might be too much for me. As it turned out, England won 5-0 or 5-1, I think it was. So it was brilliant. But the big disappointment was the first few games of next season I damaged my knee and missed pretty much the whole season. So from getting into an England team ahead of people, I opened the door with an injury to other people getting ahead of me, so that was a big blow for me. So that this mixed sort of feeling, because playing for England was incredible. Well, it's icing on the cake, isn't it? It's right there. I mean, and again, 6 years prior to that, I was only playing for East Durham boys. You know, I mean, I couldn't even get in Durham County. I couldn't get in the county team. I played for my regional team. I didn't get in my county team. Certainly, I got England basketball trials, which I was better at basketball than football, according to some people. You know, so it was just a remarkable period, incredible rise. And one that you can't ever forget. It's just it's a brilliant feeling. You know, Wembley itself is an incredible place to just play on, and for people like me who like to do something different, and you know, it was just the right place. It was just perfect for me, really.
Was the occasion made more special that it was a rivalry against Wales?
Yeah, well, the home internationals were the thing them days. I mean, there were very few international games. You know, you'd end of the season, you'd play your 3 home international games, and every now and again there would be, unless there was a qualification for a cup, but there weren't, the World Cups and that, but they were nothing like they are today. Again, football has changed beyond belief, really, in terms of how many international games there are a season, how many international breaks. To get into the England squad was an achievement. And you know, I like to think I could have stayed there had I not got injured that year. I'd like to think I would have been, you know, very much in the plans. But other people got in and never got that opportunity again. So there was a massive disappointment with it as well.
I think a lot of people would agree that you should have got capped more times.
I think there's a lot of players like that, though. You know, in that team we played in those days, Dennis Moore to me. You look at Dennis, and you know, he was an unbelievable captain here. You know, and never really got the opportunities to play. I think he might have played in a friendly game. I'm not sure whether he, forgive me, Dennis, but I don't think he was capped at international level. If he did, he'd only get 1 cap like myself. But Dennis was a phenomenal player, you know, phenomenal player. And how he wasn't a regular international, I genuinely don't know.
League Cup success came away in 1977, and it was crazy. 2 replays needed. And even then, it was a late goal that decided the match. What are your fondest memories of them games?
Well, not the fondest, but probably one of the most vivid was like the Wembley game was the most boring game I've ever played in my life. In fact, the video of it spends more time looking for the bandsman's spur that he'd lost in the middle of the pitch. I mean, they have these spurs on the bottom of their boots, don't they? And one of the bandsmen had realised he'd lost his spur, so it took 15 minutes to find it, you know, and that was probably more the highlights of the game than anything else. It was horrible. It was an awful game. And unless I sat now and watched something on some sort of video of it, I genuinely can't remember anything about it.
It must have been
awful.
Straining.
It was
awful
game.
Games.
But the next game was good. I mean, and the beauty of that was, you know, in those days you got appearance money, so we got 3 final appearance monies, which was nice, really. And in fact, I think, you know, most of us were thinking, when's this going to end? Well, we don't really want it to end. Let's just play again, you know, because in those days you didn't earn what's around today. Not that that's a criticism; it's not a problem to us. But you know, we were getting decent appearance money for three sort of finals, and then Daphne went and scored a winner on the third. I really don't know what and I swear, I've said this to a few people, I really don't know whether they decided we wouldn't have played again. I really don't know. I to this day, I'm not sure whether, because penalties weren't in there, whether they would have adopted the penalty. I mean, we never talked about things like that in those days. You know, we played. As a football player, you weren't interested in whether it was penalties. You know, just let other people do that. We just went out and played. But that third game, I'm not sure whether there'd been a decision made that it was going to go to penalties, because generally speaking the rule was play the game, alright, if there's extra time's a draw, you're playing again, sort of thing. So it's something that I should clear it up, because from my own, because I do get asked it loads of times. But the third game at Old Trafford was a great game, great game for Chris Nicholl, who, you know, is scored that wonderful goal, which is great, because Chris is a good friend of mine, and we often get asked to little forums where we're always asked about that goal. and it takes him 20 minutes to describe his goal. And by then I'm bored, so I just say, well, I scored 2 as well, sort of thing, and we finished the night, sort of thing, you know. He absolutely loves telling his story about that goal. And I love him telling it, because he is probably one of the funniest men I've known, because he's so competitive, and he always had to race me, because he couldn't beat me, so he had to race. If we were doing any sort of running, I want you. I'm going to run against you. And I'd go, Chris, you can't run. You can't run. Ah, yeah, I'm going to get closer this time. And he'd pick me every time, knowing that he couldn't get anywhere near me. And we became good friends on the back of that, because he's so competitive, and I was so laid back that I'd have to jog backwards for half of it and things like that. And if we play golf, he's deadly serious, and I just hit the golf ball. I can't. And he's one of my best friends, because we're so different that I love the fact, and he wants to beat me at everything he does, because he just can't stand the fact that I'm so laid back about it and he's deadly serious. It's brilliant. We have great fun. He's a lovely lad. Just tons of stories come flooding through my memories when you start opening these little boxes.
A competition certainly does bring out the best in people, but injury then eventually started to take its toll on you, which unfortunately saw you retire quite early in 81. How were you feeling at that time, retiring so young?
Well, I damaged my knee a couple of times. My first cartilage operation took me nearly 10 months to get over, and surgery in those days wasn't quite what it is today, that's for sure. But when I damaged my knee second time round, there was lots of ligament damage. It wasn't just the cartilage, my cruciate and other things. And in those days, you were pretty much end of story. And I remember one specialist who I'd been sent to had said, I tell you what, Brian, we'll experiment on your back. We'll take a few bits out of your back. And when I'm going, oh yeah, all right. You've got no chance. Because if I can't walk when I'm older, there's just no way I'm having that done. So I was pretty much, I think I was still 25 when I played my last game, 27 when I retired. It's hard to describe, but at the end of the day, as I've said, I'm one of those people who come down very quickly, and I knew it wasn't right, and I still played a few reserve games and things like that, and people say, oh, you're great, you played great today, and then I'd go home and my knee had come up like that, and I'd sit there going, oh God. So I often said to people, they'd say, oh, you can still play, you can still do this, and I say, you can't feel what I'm feeling. You haven't got a clue what this is doing to me. So I was told to retire the same day as Mike Pedgick. Mike and I went down to Harley Street to see the specialist who'd analysed all of our x-rays and stuff like that in those days, who'd looked at my knee a few times, who'd looked at he had a pelvic problem. And on the same day we were both told we should retire from football. So it was like a double whammy, because the two of us sat there in the train station at London. We were quite emotional. Not 20. I was 27. Pedge was probably a little bit older than me. I'm thinking, what do I do now? Where do I go? I've got no qualifications. So what do you do? It's the real strange. Not like today. You've played 300 games, so you've got a few quid in the bank and stuff like that. Nothing. So it was a real, tough one, but took it, handled it, mentally just went, okay, we'll see what happens, get back, and then just see what the future held. But at that time, even prior to my visit, even though I'd had 14 months of knowing I'd got a bad knee, no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to go. So it was a crazy time, really.
So, of course, in 81 we won the league. The following season we won the European Cup. Magnificent achievement for the club. How did you feel kind of seeing from the sidelines?
To be honest, the lads are brilliant with me. I get on great with all of the lads who won the league and the lads who won the European Cup. They're all my best friends. They're actually all my heroes as well, as well as being my best friends. I love them to bits. Whenever there's something going on, generally speaking, they ask me along. And I know Peter was signed, and Shorey, God bless him, was brilliant. I mean, I have to take my hat off to Gary. Him and Peter were fantastic together. But it would have been, I know when Ron was looking at Peter, it was initially, he'd seen this partnership with myself and Peter. Peter's told me many times that when he spoke to Ron Saunders, Ron was saying, right, you and Brian Little, that's the jigsaw, that's the final piece to my jigsaw. I'm going to be successful with that team. And I never got a chance. I played with Peter once in my testimonial against England and scored 2 against England before I went off after about 30 minutes, and then never kicked the ball again, sort of thing. But Gary and Peter were magnificent. Shorey's a great friend of mine, and the lads are all brilliant. I was truly, and I have been truly immersed in this football club, that I was delighted for them, still am. I don't have any bad feelings about it at all. It's life, you get on with it. I think I've proven that I've got on with it. 40 years on, I'm still involved with football. So no, I think it was hard, and I think sometimes every now and again you look back now and you go, God, 25 and never played again after that. But I've survived. But to say, if I said, I would have to admit, me and Pedge, there was a couple of little tears there, here and there, between the two of us. But he's a brilliant man. Pedge's still a good friend of mine now. He's a 60-odd-year-old Taekwondo champion now, believe it or not. And he finished 4th in the World Over 60s Taekwondo Championship. He's as fit as a fiddle. I love Pedgic. He's a great lad. So, he found his way as well. He's brilliant. So, but we still keep in touch. We still remind each other of that day, which was definitely one of the saddest in my life.
So it's reported at the time, before you retired, you were close to joining our rivals from across the city, Birmingham. Is that true?
Yeah. Ron, in fairness to Ron Saunders, he'd had enough of me. He'd had enough of John Gidman. He'd had enough of Andy Gray. I mean, we were probably the equivalent of Ian Taylor, Tommy Johnson, and Mark Draper, with a twist. We were slightly more rebellious than those three. And Ron, had made his decision that Andy, myself, and John were to leave. And he came into me one day. Trevor had just gone to Notts Forest, £1 million. And he came in and said to me, first of all, Blackburn Rovers want you. Now at the time, Blackburn were bottom of the 3rd division. So I'm like laughing at him going, well, thank you very much, Mr. Saunders, but I'm not going to Blackburn Rovers. Which was typical, just knock you down. And then in the next breath, and Birmingham City want to sign you as well. And in those days, it wasn't such the deal that it is today.
Yeah.
In those days, in the 70s, and it was in the 70s, lots of players played for the 3 teams. Played for Wolves, West Brom, Villa, Birmingham, West Brom. It was, it was just the way it was. So whilst there was rivalry, Jim Smith wanted to sign me, and Jim was known throughout the game as being a good guy. And it was the 2nd highest transfer in the history of football at the time, 650,000, I think it was. And I needed to leave. Ron and I probably had come to the end at that period. So I went to meet Jim, and I spoke to Jim. They flew me out to Portugal. No agents in those days, so they flew me to Portugal. He was on holiday at the end of the season. Met him in a bar on the beach. And it's just so different. It wouldn't happen today. It just wouldn't happen. Yeah. So I started my negotiations with Jim, and I just thought, I didn't know what to do, so I thought, right, I'm going to be cheeky. So just first sentence, what do you want? So I said, I want a Capri 3-litre GT. He said, you just wrote it down, Capri 3-litre GT. I went, oh, this is all right. So he said, what else? And I said, I'm not going to tell you pounds, shillings and pence, but I said, I want pounds per week. Oh yeah, that's okay, £1 per week. What about appearance money, Jim? Yeah, appearance money, yeah, no problems.
Wow.
What about a signing on fee, Jim? I need a signing on fee to make, because I might have to move house, So, signing on fee, yeah. Anyway, I had the most incredible contract. And of course I failed my medical. So
is there a reason for that?
Yeah, but I have, and I did have, and I had a back problem, and when I was 41, when I actually came here, I just had my major surgery on my back. My back's collapsed. If I'd have continued playing from 25, my back would have collapsed. I had what's called I think it's a spondylolisthesis. It's a slight displacement of the vertebrae. So I had a partial disc removal, spine fusion when I was 40. It actually packed in. But if I'd played football any longer, it probably would have gone anyway. So I failed my medical, went back to Villa Park. Ron and I sort of shook hands and said, come on, that's the way it's going to be, we have to get on with it. And then all the lads were going, what's going on, what's happened? I said, well, you should have seen what he offered me. So the next morning, Ron Saunders' door was getting battered down by everybody, I swear. Everybody was going, we want that, we're better than them. And everybody got a new contract on the back of it, which was brilliant. So, no, I don't really want to go. I just, Ron and I used to just wind each other up something rotten. So, no, in them days, if it had happened, it would have happened. That's fine, but it didn't happen. But I'm a hero. You ask the lads, they all got a good rise on me. I was the main man. But it's crazy, because as I've said, you wouldn't go and see the manager at a bar in Portugal. It just wouldn't happen. And Jim was on holiday, and enjoying himself, and it was so funny. But it didn't happen. I played a little bit longer, not too much longer, and eventually damaged my knee, which was completely different to the back. But because I kept training and staying in football years on, my back actually collapsed about 6 months before I came here as a manager. I was in. I wasn't allowed to drive. I had major surgery on my back, so I was in a bit of a mess when I came here. But another little chink in the works for me, sort of thing.
So, who was the best player you ever played with?
Well, my favourite, again, the best players, I don't know. Best players, favourite players, I always pick on strikers but Andy Gray was obviously my favourite. Keith Leonard would have been a great player. Would have been a great old-fashioned centre forward. I played with a lad called Andy Lockhead, who was like, I talk about men, and teaching you how to play. Andy was brilliant with me. Andy really liked me. Andy and Davy Gibson, two Scottish lads, Davy Gibson used to pick me we used to play 3-a-side when I was a young footballer, and Davy Gibson always used to pick John Gidman and me, and we used to win every little 3-a-side tournament, and Davy used to just talk to us all along. So he was a bit of a legend for me and a great mentor for me. But my favourite player to play with, to have been, and Dennis Mortimer, I said I have unbelievable respect for Dennis. I thought he was a great player. Yeah. My mate Gidman was a good player. But Andy was a joy to play alongside. He just so brave, it was untrue. When he signed, I'd played with Andy Lockhead and Keith Leonard, two massive centre forwards, and I remember looking at Andy and thinking, wow, he's not that big. But my first game with him was up at Middlesbrough, and I remember they had a centre half called Stuart Bourne, who was 6'4", and I remember putting this ball in the box right above Stuart Bourne's head, and then I saw Andy on his back right up above him, and I went, oh, that's our big centre forward. He could jump like the best of them. He was brilliant. So we had a great relationship in terms of understanding on the field of play. He's the most ferocious character you could come across, the most competitive person you could come across, and that just made life very easy for me. I just produced little competitive balls for him all the time, and I knew he would go for it. Again, I've used the sentence before. I'm probably underselling myself there, but because to put the ball where you need to put the ball is obviously some sort of a talent. But primarily, you put the ball in the box, and Andy Gray would be going for it wherever it was. So I had an unbelievable partner who I could tempt with little balls into the box, whether it be down here, whether it be up there. I had different types of balls, but if I put the ball in front of him, I knew he would attack it. So he was, and he was just infectious. He was an infectious character. So he was genuinely my favourite, without a doubt.
What about the best player you played against?
Oh God, no! Some good players. Again, you go back to Leeds United, our first game here in the Premier League, in the First Division. I played against a lad called Paul Madeley. And I remember coming off that, and I remember we'd just been promoted to the top flight. I'd just played for England. I thought I was, I remember thinking, oh, I'm the player here, I am the man. And I played against Paul Madeley. I never got a kick. I went home and cried. I remember going home that night thinking, I'm not good, I'm useless. I never got a kick. He just laughed at me. He was just too good for me. And I remember then thinking, right, I've got to up my game now. Paul Madeley was a great player. Toddy, McFarland, Roy McFarland. I spoke to Roy a few weeks ago. Derby were here. And he said he didn't like me because I scored 2 against him once. So he reminded me how many times he kicked me after that. Roy McFarland. Roy was, Roy McFarland, the new centre half, cultured centre half, the new wave. Oh, but blooming heck did he kick you? God, true. So Roy was a good player. But I was fortunate. I played against Beckenbauer here. Beckenbauer and they played in a friendly match here. But I think in English terms, I think Roy McFarland and Paul Madeley were just on a different level. They were so good, hard, but Madeley was elegant with it as well. But then there was a few naughty ones, a few who frightened me.
Yeah.
And you'll ask some of the fans who see me play on the left wing a few times or the right wing. That was because the big centre forward had threatened to do me a few times, and I generally sort of went out a little bit wider on those games. Because in those days, if Larry Lloyd said, yeah, he's going to do you, Larry Lloyd was going to do you, and whoever it was, if it was one of them big, rough, tough centre halves who said, oi, you, I foolishly tackled Larry Lloyd once. And he just looked at me and went, don't you come near me again. And I didn't go near him because I knew what he'd do to me. And they would in them days. If you... Because in those days, the centre halves weren't that mobile, but they were allowed to give you a right good scene too. So, sometimes I played my best football out wide. by good decisions. Yeah, so it's a different game, but brilliant. I loved all those lads, they're great lads. And Roy was here, who was a lovely, lovely fella.
Fantastic.